Did you know that some of the most common things older men do every single day could be silently harming their prostate? Experts who've spent decades working closely with men from their late 50s into their 80s and all agree on one difficult truth. More often than not, it's not your DNA or bad luck that undermines prostate health. It's habit. It's the seemingly harmless choices you make daily, the small routines you never give a second thought to, that build up over time until one day your body pushes back. And not gently. If you're a senior man, or you care deeply about one, please pay close attention. What I'm about to share could help you avoid years of discomfort, sleepless nights, expensive prescriptions, and invasive medical procedures. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to plead with you. As a doctor who's worked with hundreds of men facing prostate issues, I've seen the same patterns again and again. There are 5 specific habits that show up constantly in my patients. They walk into my office asking, "Why didn't anyone tell me this earlier?" So today, I'm going to do just that. I'll walk you through what to stop doing, why it matters, and what to do instead. I promise to keep everything straightforward, practical, and down to earth, because that's what actually helps people make lasting changes. Even if you think your prostate is fine now, or if you've never given it much thought, please stay with me, because in my experience, it's the things you ignore that end up costing you the most. Let's begin with the first and most overlooked mistake: holding in your urine for too long. It's something many older men do without even thinking. You're watching the game, you're caught in traffic, you're too tired to get up at night. You feel the urge to go, but you hold it. It seems harmless enough. But over time, this habit puts increasing pressure on the bladder and the prostate, which sit close together. And that pressure can cause real problems. The prostate is a small gland, but it's a sensitive one. When irritated repeatedly, especially by something as avoidable as urine retention, it can swell, become inflamed, or begin to interfere with normal urinary flow. And once that starts, the discomfort, interrupted sleep, and complications tend to follow. So if you've been ignoring the urge to go, brushing it off as no big deal, it's time to reconsider. Because this small act, done often, is one of the most damaging things you can do to your prostate. And fortunately, it's also one of the easiest habits to change. When you constantly delay emptying your bladder, the prostate begins to swell, tighten, and eventually restrict the normal flow of urine. That's when the real problems begin. Many men believe that frequent bathroom trips are just part of aging, something inevitable. But the truth is, the very way we respond to those urges, the habit of holding it in, is often what leads to those repeated, frustrating trips in the first place. There's also a deeper psychological side to this that rarely gets discussed, especially among men who were raised to tough it out. I can't tell you how many times I've heard patients say things like, "I didn't want to be a bother," or "It's not urgent, I'll go later." By the time they finally listen to their body, though, the damage is already underway. When the bladder is forced to stretch beyond its normal limits, the muscles that support it start to weaken. And here's the problem: once those muscles are compromised, even when you do finally go, your bladder may not empty completely. What's left behind becomes a breeding ground for bacteria, inflammation, and over time, more serious conditions like benign prostatic hyperplasia (BP). Let me give you an example. Harold, a 74-year-old retired truck driver, came into my office recently. He was experiencing severe urgency, a weak stream, and constant discomfort. For decades, Harold avoided stopping at restrooms during long hauls because it would slow him down. That small habit, repeated over years, led to a situation where even a simple family dinner became stressful. He couldn't sit through a meal without needing to rush to the bathroom multiple times. The regret in his eyes was unmistakable. Don't let that be your story. The solution is simple, but it requires consistency. Go when you feel the urge. Not 10 minutes later, not when it's more convenient, right when your body signals it's time. Listening to your body in that moment is one of the easiest and most powerful ways to protect your prostate, without needing medication or complicated treatments. Now let's move to the second common but often overlooked habit: sitting for long periods without moving. This is one of the most silent yet damaging things you can do to your prostate, and chances are you might be doing it right now. Whether you're watching TV, working at a desk, or driving for long stretches, extended sitting significantly reduces blood flow to the pelvic area. On top of that, it places direct pressure on the prostate gland itself. This daily compression, repeated for months or even years, causes inflammation and stiffness in the surrounding tissues. It's one of the lesser-known reasons why many older men complain of a persistent dull ache between their legs, or that uncomfortable sense of fullness that just doesn't go away, even after they've gone to the bathroom. You might be thinking, but I take walks every day. Isn't that enough? Niet. Unfortunately, it's not just about how much you move throughout the day. It's about how long you go without moving. If you regularly sit for more than 30 minutes without standing up, your circulation slows dramatically. The tissues around your prostate become deprived of oxygen, and inflammation begins to build, often so gradually that you won't notice until you're waking up multiple times a night or struggling with painful urination. There's also a deeper issue at play here, one that ties into lifestyle, routine, and even identity. For many men in their 60s and 70s were raised with a strong work ethic, taught to stay busy, provide for their families, and keep moving. But when retirement arrives and that fast-paced routine suddenly slows down, it's easy to slip into long stretches of inactivity without even noticing. The body, however, still needs movement. It needs reasons to keep blood flowing, muscles engaged, and organs well supported. And the prostate is no exception. If your day-to-day routine includes hours of sitting without breaks, whether reading, watching TV, or scrolling through a screen, it's time to reevaluate. Not just for the sake of your spine or your waistline, but for your prostate's long-term health as well. Let me introduce you to Dennis, a 68-year-old former accountant. After retiring, he quickly settled into a quiet, familiar rhythm: coffee and a newspaper in the morning, followed by a few hours at his desk managing personal finances or reading, and then long afternoons spent watching television. It seemed harmless, comfortable even. But over time, Dennis began to notice perineal discomfort and a slowing urinary stream. He couldn't understand why. Nothing in his life felt particularly wrong. The solution turned out to be surprisingly simple. By standing up and stretching every 30 minutes and adding just 2 short walks each day, his symptoms were cut by more than half within just 2 months. No medication, no equipment, no gym membership. You don't need fancy routines or intense workouts. Just get up, shift your weight, walk a few laps around the house, do some light stretches in the hallway, break the cycle of sitting still for hours on end. These simple actions can significantly reduce pelvic congestion and improve circulation to your prostate. And yes, your prostate will thank you for it. If you're still watching and finding these insights helpful, leave a comment below with the words "number 2, so I know you're here and engaged. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now is a great time to do so. Turn on the bell to stay updated with every new video. Your support helps us continue creating valuable content that informs and inspires. Now, let's continue. One of the most underestimated stressors on the prostate isn't your diet or even age. It's delay. Specifically, ignoring that subtle urge to urinate. Holding it in might not seem like a big deal, especially if you're busy or distracted. But every time you suppress that urge, you're training your bladder and your prostate into an unhealthy pattern that becomes difficult to break. Each time you resist going, pressure inside your bladder builds. That pressure doesn't just stretch the bladder walls, it pushes directly against the prostate. And repeated pressure like that eventually leads to irritation, swelling, and inflammation. It doesn't happen all at once. It builds slowly, quietly, until one day the symptoms appear. This habit is especially common among men who are used to powering through discomfort. Those raised to finish the job before taking a break. Those who pride themselves on pushing through rather than listening to their body. But in this case, Ignoring what seems like a small signal can turn into a long-term problem. Waiting another 10 or 20 minutes might not seem like a big deal. But if that becomes your routine, it's your prostate that ends up paying the price. You might not feel the impact immediately, maybe not even in your 60s, but by the time you reach your 70s, that repeated pressure begins to catch up with you. It contributes directly to benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, and suddenly those occasional nighttime trips to the bathroom become frequent, frustrating, and disruptive. Here's something many men overlook. As you age, your bladder becomes less flexible. It doesn't stretch the way it used to. At the same time, your prostate grows more sensitive to pressure. That combination makes holding in urine a lot more harmful than you might think. It also creates the perfect storm for infection. When urine sits in the bladder too long, it stagnates. Bacteria begin to multiply, and slowly, inflammation starts to spread. But the tricky part? These changes don't always come with clear warning signs. You might not feel burning, you might not feel pain, and that's exactly why so many older men ignore the problem until it becomes something far more serious. Let me tell you about Walter, a 73-year-old retired bus driver. For decades, he was on strict driving routes, often holding it in for hours because restroom stops weren't convenient. Even after retirement, he had gotten so used to ignoring his body's signals that he barely noticed when he had to go. One day, he ended up in the emergency room with a severe urinary tract infection. It was so advanced, he needed a catheter for several weeks. The doctors traced it back to his long-standing habit of delaying urination. After that, Walter made a conscious effort to change. He started paying closer attention to his body. If he felt the urge, even slightly, he got up and went. His symptoms didn't disappear overnight, but they stopped getting worse, and that alone was a huge step in the right direction. The message here couldn't be clearer. When your body whispers, don't wait for it to scream. If you feel the urge, act on it. Keep your system flowing, keep internal pressure low, and treat your bladder and prostate like the vital, sensitive organs they truly are. Because a small adjustment today could save you from major regret tomorrow. Now let's move to habit number 4, eating too much red meat too often. There's a long-standing belief that a thick, juicy steak is a symbol of strength, manhood, even success. And yes, red meat is packed with protein and iron. No one is denying that. But here's the part most men in their 60s and 70s don't like to hear. Especially if they're concerned about prostate health, too much red meat, especially when it's grilled, barbecued, or processed, can quietly start working against you. This isn't about a single burger or an occasional steak dinner. The issue is the pattern, the repeated consumption, week after week, month after month. Because what happens inside your body isn't immediate, but it's significant. When red meat is cooked at high temperatures, it forms compounds known as heterocyclic amines. These compounds, heterocyclic amines, form when red meat is cooked at high temperatures. Alongside the saturated fats found in red and processed meats, they've been linked to increased inflammation in the prostate. And over time, that inflammation builds silently, creating the perfect internal storm. Chronic irritation, hormonal imbalance, and in some men, a higher risk of developing more aggressive prostate issues. Let's be clear, red meat isn't poison, but moderation is critical. The real issue is habit. Many men grew up during a time when dinner wasn't dinner unless there was a hefty portion of meat on the plate. Meat and potatoes every night was the norm. But here's the truth. Your prostate doesn't care what decade you were raised in. It responds only to what you put in your body right now. Too much saturated fat can quietly shift your hormones. Those hormonal changes can fuel abnormal prostate growth and exacerbate inflammation. And most men don't realize it until their lab work tells a different story. Let me tell you about John, a 68-year-old retired contractor. Sundays were sacred to him, grill day. Ribs, sausages, thick steaks, every single week. It was his tradition, part of his identity. He felt fine until a routine checkup showed his PSA levels had spiked. His doctor didn't panic, but gently encouraged him to mix things up. More fish, more vegetables, fewer flame-charred meats. At first, John resisted. It felt like giving up a piece of his lifestyle. But eventually, he made the shift. Within 6 months, not only had his inflammation markers gone down, his energy went up. He was sleeping better, moving easier, and feeling sharper. That experience taught him something important. The foods we love don't have to hurt us, but they do require balance. If this sounds familiar, don't worry. You don't have to give up steak forever. Try this instead. For every serving of red meat, add 2 servings of vegetables. Swap out 1 or 2 red meat meals each week for fish or plant-based proteins. It's not about restriction, it's about respect. Respect for your body, for your future, and for the health of a gland that works quietly but plays a vital role in your well-being. Your prostate isn't asking you to abandon flavor or tradition. It's simply asking for a little balance, a little kindness. Because once inflammation sets in, reversing it is a lot harder than preventing it in the first place. If you're still here and learning something valuable, go ahead and comment number 4 down below so I know you're with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, take a moment to hit that button and turn on notifications. Your support helps us keep creating content that informs and empowers. Now let's continue. Number 5. Holding it in too long. This one might surprise you, but it's something countless men do without even realizing the damage. Waiting too long to urinate, even when your body is clearly signaling it's time, is one of the quietest ways older men damage their prostate, without even realizing it, is by holding in their urine too often. Whether it's out of habit, convenience, or simply ignoring that first urge, this seemingly minor behavior can cause very real problems over time. Let's break down what's actually happening in your body. When you frequently delay urination, you build up pressure in your bladder and along the urethra. That pressure doesn't just stay put. It eventually backs up into the prostate region. Over time, this creates internal tension, weakens bladder muscles, and can lead to chronic urinary retention. In more severe cases, it can even trigger inflammation in the prostate or worsen existing symptoms of benign prostatic hyperplasia, BPH. Here's something most men over 65 don't realize. The muscles involved in urination aren't as strong as they used to be. Just like every other muscle in the body, they weaken with age, especially if they're overworked or constantly stressed. And when you keep holding it in, you're adding strain that those muscles weren't meant to handle. What happens next is a slow decline. Even when you do finally go, your bladder might not empty completely. That leftover urine creates the perfect environment for bacteria to grow. This can lead to infections, discomfort, and that lingering feeling of not being fully relieved, no matter how often you go. And if you already have an enlarged prostate, this habit only compounds the issue, making your symptoms worse over time. I remember talking with Larry, a 72-year-old who shared something many men can probably relate to. He hated using public restrooms, so much so that he'd hold it for hours until he was home. It felt like a harmless choice, a little discomfort he could deal with. But over the years, the consequences crept in. He began waking up multiple times a night, struggling with a weak stream, and feeling constant pressure in his lower abdomen. When he finally opened up to his doctor, the root cause wasn't mysterious. It was years of putting off what his body had been asking him to do. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness. Your body sends signals for a reason. And when it says it's time to go, listen. Prioritize it. If you're in the car, pull over. If you're out running errands, find the nearest restroom. Responding to that urge isn't a weakness. It's a smart, protective habit. One that safeguards one of the most sensitive areas of your body as you age. Little choices like this, the ones you make every day, can either preserve your prostate health or quietly chip away at it. So be kind to your system. Pay attention to the signs. Take action when your body speaks. Because in the end, those small, mindful decisions now could spare you from much bigger problems down the road. You'll be doing your future self a real favor. Taking care of your prostate health doesn't have to involve expensive treatments or waiting for something to go wrong. It begins with the small, everyday decisions, the quiet habits you choose to stop or replace starting today. These little actions might seem harmless on their own, but over time, they accumulate. And the good news is, so does the benefit of making better choices. When you start shifting those patterns, even just a little, you're giving yourself something incredibly valuable: more comfort, more freedom, and a deeper peace of mind as you move forward. You're creating a future with fewer disruptions, fewer regrets, and more control over how you feel each day. If any part of this video felt familiar to you, don't be discouraged. None of this is about blame. Most of us weren't taught this growing up. We didn't learn these habits in school, and no one handed us a guidebook on how to care for the prostate as we age. And the truth is, staying healthy later in life isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. It's about making slightly better decisions today than you did yesterday. That's where real change begins. That's where your power lives, not in some perfect routine, but in daily progress. So I want to ask you, what was the one thing in this video that stuck with you? Was it something you'd never heard before? Or maybe it was something you've known for a while, but today was the moment it finally clicked? The reminder you needed? Thank you for being here and sharing your time with us. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and let us know one insight you're taking away and how you plan to use it in your own life. Your thoughts mean a lot to us. They don't just help us improve, they inspire us to keep going. Reading your comments gives us the motivation to keep creating videos like this, content that aims to inform, support, and encourage. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like, hit subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it too. Wishing you good health, happiness, and peace always. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel so we can keep growing together.